Hey everybody, for those of you who've been hanging out with us for the last hour and a half, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And for those of you just joining us, my name is Darlene Rondo. I'm Vice President Best Practices for Leonardo's Online Merchandising Group, and I've been moderating today's summit. Before I introduce our next speakers, a reminder that you can send in your questions through the GoToMeeting questions dialog box, and we'll address them as we go, but we also have a dedicated time at the end of this next segment at 1:35 Eastern Standard Time. So in this presentation, we're going to focus on a central part of the shopping journey, which is the booking phase and direct bookings, to be more precise. In this section, I'm joined by Joey Egan from Leonardo and David Chesler from SiteMinder for this discussion. These days, we hear a lot about how hotels are struggling on the direct booking front. And according to Skift, Megatrends Defining Travel in 2016 report they put out, OTAs are commanding more than 40% of hotel gross bookings in the U.S., 69% in Europe, and 64% in Asia Pacific. These are big numbers. And I don't have to tell you that that adds up to big commissions in order to fill your room. So the question is, why are OTAs winning so big? According to a Google study, some of the most common reasons leisure travelers book with an OTA, and we talked about it in the last segment: price. They believe the price is lower, or they're getting a better deal on an OTA. Brand recognition, past positive booking experiences, loyalty or rewards programs. And for business travelers, it's really much the same, though loyalty and reward programs do carry more weight with this type of traveler, as do positive past experiencing. But not all is lost. There are lots of things that we can do as both branded and independent properties where you can address and replicate solutions that are going to be successful. And as I mentioned earlier in the inspiration phase, hotels have more than 50% chance of securing that final booking. So sometimes the problem is that when it comes to the hotel website, which we just heard is where many properties should be focusing, a lot of folks are just looking at the wrong things. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joey Egan, because Joey is going to discuss some of the common mistakes that people make on their websites and what areas you can focus on to get more travelers down the path to purchase, aka your booking engine. So Joey, over to you.
Thank you, Darlene, and welcome to everyone. Thank you for attending today. We all appreciate it. As Darlene mentioned, I'm going to take my time here today to share a few best practices with you on driving more direct bookings through your own website. As modern-day hospitality professionals, you are acutely aware of the top challenges each of you face in running a hotel, B&B, or another accommodation. You're busy with operational meetings, managing your staff, and attending to guest issues both on property and online. But most importantly, focused on ensuring you're hitting your occupancy and revenue targets. According to a recent study by BLLA, hoteliers at boutique hotels spend 58% of their time on sales and marketing activities. That's a lot of time, but are you getting what you need out of those efforts? And more specifically, are you getting enough from the most important sales and marketing asset, your hotel website? Based on this research, the answer is no for a lot of you, not only in the boutique sector, but for hotels of all sizes and star ratings. In a poll that we conducted at the end of 2015, 60% of hoteliers said that their biggest challenge was driving direct website conversions. And STR found that on average, only 1/4 of room nights for independent hotels are made via their hotel website, the rest through OTAs. So why is driving direct bookings such a challenge? For one, in an effort to make a great website, hoteliers often unknowingly move further away from achieving the goal of their website, and that is converting lookers into bookers. They focus on things that aren't adding value versus focusing on providing a great user experience and making the site easy to use and, more importantly, easy to book through. And secondly, devoting the time and attention to a website isn't easy with the day-to-day demands that we outlined earlier. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to share 5 best practices with you today that will hopefully help you drive more direct bookings on your website, reduce your dependence on the third-party channels, and ultimately drive more revenue. But before we get started, I want to just share a quick story about the power of a website optimized for direct bookings. The Malolo B&B is one of the top B&Bs in the U.S. They also happen to be a customer of ours. David, the owner of this 4-room B&B, approached us and explained that his OTA commission fees were eating into his profit margins. At the time, 80% of his bookings were coming from the OTAs. 20% came to him directly. Just 3 months after launching a new website that was built to drive conversions, this ratio shifted significantly. Now, 40% of the Malolo's bookings are coming through his own website, reducing the dependence on third parties to 60%. That's a 100% increase in direct bookings. Now, the result was that it put $8,000 a year into David's pocket. That may not seem a lot for most of you, but for the small B&B it was. If you take that same math and apply it to a 75-room hotel, the result is an extra $118,000. A 109-room hotel, you're looking at $228,000, and so on. The Malolo has seen great success following this simple recipe that I'll share with you today. So let's jump right in. The first best practice is pretty straightforward, but unfortunately it's overlooked, and that is give travel shoppers what they want. The best performing websites show the right type of content to travel shoppers. Their content is tailored to their target audience and focuses on what consumers care about most. For travel shoppers, it comes down to 4 main wants. First, they want to know what makes your hotel different than the others on their list. For example, what is it about your hotel that will make my trip more fun, comfortable, or efficient? What experience can I expect when I arrive on property? Second, they want to know what your rooms look like, and I'm talking about the whole story. This includes the bed, the desk, the sitting area, the bathrooms, the amenities, all of it. And thirdly, they want to know if they can get a deal, because who doesn't love a special offer? Finally, they want to know what other people think about your hotel. So to get a better understanding of what travel shoppers really care about, we analyzed our own data for more than 500 million pieces of media. Our research revealed that guest rooms, no surprise, are the #1 most viewed image by a wide margin. And in fact, guest rooms are 2 times more popular than next, which happens to be restaurants. This is interesting because a lot of hotels lead with an exterior photo of their property as their hero shot on the homepage. But unless your building is of historical or architectural importance, consumers don't care. Stop doing it. They want to see your guest rooms, not exteriors. They want the content that will describe the experience they will have at your property and in the surrounding areas. The second best practice is visual storytelling. When someone lands on your homepage, visuals help make a great first impression. Not only because visual storytelling works, it makes an impression and conjures up memories. When it works well, it makes us feel. Creating that emotional connection with travel shoppers is key, as emotion has been found to have a huge influence on purchase intent. And as people, we're captivated by stories, which creates a big opportunity for properties, both branded and independent, small and large. Visual storytelling matters because we love images. They help to convey a story quickly and effectively. We're visual people in a visual world. According to Moz, studies also show that people also remember images longer. Our brains prioritize visual information over any other kind, which makes images the fast tracking to connecting with travel shoppers. But storytelling isn't just about including pictures and videos on your website. Travel shoppers crave stories across many different types of mediums and devices, as we've heard earlier today, with mobile. They want short bursts of information in snackable forms like snaps, vines, or tweets that convey who you are and what you offer to guests. They're also looking for the context around your visuals. For example, a collection of photos with best practice captions and accompanying short descriptions. A good example of a property that knows its guests and is able to use visual storytelling very effectively is the Mare Vista in the Greek islands. The moment you land on their website, you're greeted with stunning, crisp visuals of the hotel and surrounding areas. You feel as if you're already there. They organize their media in easy-to-navigate web galleries throughout their site so that you can really see what it's like. The Mare Vista uses visuals to target specific travelers extremely well. They have curated media to show that they're family-friendly and that they're also a hotspot for surfing and trekking. Visitors to your website need to have their questions answered before they book a room. The key is to facilitate this on your site so they aren't tempted to go elsewhere. In other words, find out the information your users want in order to book a room and deliver it. The third best practice is social proof, which Ellis talked a great deal about. Social proof refers to the independent third-party feedback that gives travel shoppers the boost of confidence they need to book your hotel. Social proof can be anything generated by someone else that tells people about your property, such as reviews, ratings, awards, etc. We all appreciate how important reviews are, as Ellis stated earlier, and guests will seek those opinions of others whether you like it or not. So you may as well make it very easy for them. Don't give travel shoppers an excuse to leave your website and look elsewhere for the validation they need. If they're there, you want to keep them there. There's a few examples here. First are reviews. As Ellis mentioned earlier, TripAdvisor, TrustYou, as well as many other companies offer widgets that make this really easy to insert into your own website. You want to give website visitors access to user-generated content, which I believe Ed mentioned earlier as well. You can do this by making your social media links prominent on your site, or better yet, pull photos and videos of your guests that your guests are posting on their social media profiles. You want to place any awards, but place them at the top of your website. Don't bury them at the bottom in the footer. And another important form of social proof is third-party certification icons. Consumers have a tendency to be wary of making transactions on websites they don't know or haven't been to yet. Calm those fears by adding icons that indicate the transaction is safe and secure. And finally, provide evidence that others are booking right then and there. It's a terrific way of showing urgency. OTAs do this all the time, and they do it really well. Things like 10 people are currently looking at this hotel, or 50 people have booked this hotel in the last 24 hours. Create that urgency. You will benefit. These strategies work because it reassures travel shoppers that other people want to stay at your hotel. The fourth one is make it easy to book. And David will touch on this a bit more shortly. But unfortunately, the booking process is where things can go terribly wrong. And the reason is not all that different than what happens at a physical retail store. How many times have you been in a store ready to buy something you may not necessarily need, but you talk yourself into it, only to go to the cash register and see that the lineup is 10, 20 people deep. So huge that you just abandon your items right then and there and leave the store. I've been there. I know many others have been there. It happens all the time. Cart abandonment is a real problem, both offline in the physical world as well as online, and it's a huge problem for hotels. According to Sales Cycle, 81% of online travel bookings are abandoned. That's worth more than $1.78 trillion. And this could be for any number of reasons. Someone may be just browsing your website, checking prices, or they may not feel like they're getting the best deal. But perhaps one of the most common reasons for booking abandonment is that your booking process is too cumbersome. That's why it's smart to actually optimize your booking process. So how do you do that? Well, the first step is to make it as easy as possible for visitors to find and click the Book Now button by displaying it prominently on every page of your website. Once they click the Book Now button, indicating their purchase intent, it needs to be easy to actually complete the booking. As you can see on the screen, there are 8. I won't read them all, but a few of them I would mention is, only ask for the information that you truly need. Any additional field equates to 10% of your bookings leaving, okay? The other one that I'd like to mention is ensure travel shoppers can book with minimal clicks and pages. Look at an OTA like Expedia. You can book in just 2 clicks. You have to make it that simple. Also, don't add call to actions that distract them from the checkout process, like registering for a newsletter. You can do that after you secure the booking, okay? And finally, create that sense of urgency, as I mentioned earlier, to get them and motivate them to book right then and there as they're on the page. Optimizing your booking process is so critical to having a website that converts at a high rate and one that doesn't. Make it easy to book, and you'll be on your way to greater success and greater revenue. The last thing I'll mention is mobile, and all the other speakers have mentioned it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. And just because this is my last best practice doesn't mean it's the least important. In fact, it's probably the most important. Mobile comes down to one thing. If you don't have a mobile optimized, adaptive, responsive website today, you're losing business and will continue to do so in the future. There is no other way to put it. It's predicted at the end of 2016, 52% of online travel bookings in the U.S. will be made on mobile devices. And next year, that's expected to be closer than 60%. If you're not offering a great mobile experience with superior usability, social proof, and an optimized checkout, then you're not going to get the bookings you want. To quickly recap, and this is my last slide before handing it over to David, is, one, be helpful and informative on your website. Help shoppers understand why your hotel is the right choice for them. Two, lead with visuals to convey your unique story and provide context with captivating descriptions. Three, reviews and social proof matter. Integrate them into your website so travel shoppers don't have a reason to leave. Four, make the booking process a no-brainer. You will benefit. And five, you need to be on mobile, plain and simple. If you follow these 5 best practices, you'll be on your way to creating a high-performing website that converts more bookings. Thank you.
Thanks, Joey. Really great best practices there. And those are the most important ones, I think, to focus on. And, there's lots that folks can do on the call today to really, as all of the speakers have said, make your website the best place it can be. And, Sherry chimed in from the audience, and she wanted to know, how do I get customers to come to my site versus the OTA? I think the very simple answer is, give them an experience, show them what that anticipated experience is going to be on your website, and you'll be a long ways into doing that. So now we are going to reintroduce David Chesler from SiteMinder, and David's going to look at the entire distribution channel with a focus on direct booking. So David, over to you. Thanks for hanging with us.
Thank you so much for having us. SiteMinder, we're very excited to be part of your thought leadership team here, and also very excited to turn out and the excitement from the passionate leaders. So we want to add our piece to it. I'll just begin selecting and move. I don't want to go back to the beginning of history, obviously. There's not enough time. But I do want to focus on how it's been a slow and steady change, an evolution, not a revolution, in the booking process, and where those bookings have been taking place. When you think about it, how hoteliers started and what they started for, I remember my early days working for a representation company, going to the airport to pick up microfiche, which was basically the availability rates and inventory for the properties for the month. And that's changed dramatically in the time that we've been practicing, right? So I think what you see with this evolution is that there's really been a change from that one screen and consulting the expert to the expert becoming the consumer themselves. And what we found as we started looking at the marketplace and analyzing it ourselves is that quite literally there's a lot of interest in how the personalization and the direct sale is really driving the consumer. What we see is that changing balance of power. And that's kind of setting the precedent for how we've adapted, creating more of a user experience, as I think everyone's mentioned. How it went from those experts that were the tour operators and planners of the world, and it's changed into more of a user economy, where actually the users are generating the content, and the content is very important to enabling that booking process, the comfort and confidence in what I'm going to request and buy is what I'm actually going to receive. That's also opened it up for alternative inventory, which in a world right now where the global traveler is becoming, is growing rapidly, there are more airports being built in Asia Pacific than anywhere else. It's interesting to see how these new economies are coming on and impacting the marketplace. We heard literally how Airbnb in the Caribbean is impacting in the market by taking seats on flights because there's limited supply. And they're able to measure that now and that impact on the hotels. And some of the hotels, some of the CHTA members are focusing on how can they embrace some of this and use it to their benefit as well. So we see this change going on, and what we're very interested in is how we're able to help the hotels with their booking process to embrace this change. The team already has talked about how many platforms consumers are looking at, how they're embracing on all of these platforms, and how you need to have that responsive design site. You need to have widgets for social media and similar, including the mobile, because you are competing with some players that are spending billions of dollars, both for eyeballs and on technology. We hear that through Expedia, we hear that through Priceline, and many of them are trying to go into the property side support, building websites and enabling hotels to not only work with their OTA, but work on their platforms. And we think that there's a change that needs to happen, that properties need to really own and control their own inventory. And that came around because of owning your business mix and understanding, like we've talked about, your corporate traveler, your leisure traveler, and understanding where you're deriving that business from. We find that by working with all of these players and where the global traveler is looking, they're actually doing a lot more of that search themselves. And like we mentioned, there's the OTAs, there's the alternative inventory market, and there are also all these points of interest and things to do that are attracting them to a destination. So again, embracing the destination and using search and meta search to help drive that, with Google and TripAdvisor and others starting to help in that derivation of business, right? So we talked through some of the numbers. We've done a number of studies with some partners, and we found that, the OTAs, and I think Colibri Labs also mentioned, the OTAs are actually growing over the past 5 years. And a lot of that is incumbent because they adapt. They've evolved into meta search as search has changed. TripAdvisor is adapting, right? They've used instant booking models and things that we very much support because we see the value of the business mix. We understand the value of the OTAs, and we think it's critical in managing your business mix to support exactly the methodology that the consumer is seeking, right? I want the best information. I want to merchandise properly. I want to understand what you're offering and what I'm getting. And many times, in the way you position your rooms and images, you can actually upsell customers on your site by having that juxtaposed. I think when you look at a booking or a meta search, many dominated by the chains, you see what they're doing well is the merchandising. And that's why the consumers are really going there to look. We think that there's a viable way to start shifting your business, not by taking a protectionist approach, which again, Colibri Labs started to show back in October of this year, that the chains weren't really having an impact pulling business direct, that the business was still flowing through the OTAs, it's still growth, but the opportunity now is to better manage that mix, understand using transparency of your automation to drive that business through your connectivity. And that's where we're focusing on, that connectivity, that integration of your property management system out to the marketplace, where we're enabling that distribution of your availability rates and inventory, ARI. When Ellis was speaking, he mentioned there are three critical components of that booking process. One was location, another was price, and of course he would mention reviews. We agree with that all the content is important because, again, that's providing validation. As Charlie said, being able to see the comparative prices on the pages is very helpful. We like all of that, but also having the right price, the right rooms available, and making sure that your pooled inventory is available for all channels, so wherever the demand's coming from, you're able to fulfill. Ultimately, that's important, but how you drive that to your own booking site is really going to be important. And that's where we think your online booking engine, as Ed mentioned, is so important. We look at all of the content, but is your engine flexible enough to be able to work with all the various merchandising capabilities available? Is it also a secure booking process? We're hearing a lot about breaches and things of this nature, which is a concern in this world. HCNG mentioned it's not a question of if you're going to be breached, it's when. And I think working with a more viable solution provider that has your security in mind, as well as enabling that merchandising and booking capability through the integration is an important tick box that you have to go through. We've talked a lot about mobile. Mobile-only deals and promotions, that's how you might shift some of the demand. We're not saying you're going to migrate and have channel shift immediately from your GDS or from your direct or call center. What we're saying is it's a planned approach. You need to start capturing your guests where they're shopping. Is there a promotion that says if you book now on mobile, we'll give you something beneficial? Are you able to give them enough of the information they need? Do you have tools available that they can see what else they can do in the marketplace, not just stay in the room? I think it's analyzing your guests, as we've talked about. It's going through some testing, and it's understanding how mobile is impacting the marketplace. As we showed in the beginning, if not just through the shopping phases, but actually in the conversion and booking, even last minute, which we've seen. One of the other areas we also like is the ability to upsell. We've seen how much the airlines have made by starting to bundle and even breaking out some of their services and offerings. So one of the things we like is being able to start bundling some of these offers into your booking queue. So we found that with proper lead time, guests and your consumer is 3 times more likely to buy extras during the booking process. But as Joey and everyone has said, you don't want to distract them from the actual booking into shopping and all of a sudden leaving your site. So it's a fine line of working with some of the experts, understanding some of the specific best practices that are available, and ensuring that the company you're partnering with is able to support these types of demands that really help you add value to your consumer experience. I mentioned security and trust. There's something called PCI, which is a credit card industry security measure that is basically ensuring that the data that is transported or shared by companies is either encrypted, tokenized, and that the entire environment, including the infrastructure, is safe and secure. Are you sure that the provider you're working with is actually compliant? Do you have a security champion at your property? So that you are looking out for what is happening in the marketplace and protecting your consumer. It's very expensive should you have any problems like this. And also, are you taking payments or are you working through a third party? This also is very important to start looking at how it affects your consumer. Both multi-currency exchanges, are you offering it in multi-currency? Are you able to support the consumer no matter where they're coming from in multilingual operation? So I think, again, it's starting to look at your consumer first and building out from your consumer into the marketplace. The last piece that I think I'll focus on, because again, I don't want to take too much time, is around the integration. And that's where we find it really important to have a very tightly integrated solution. What we found, and if you start to look into the marketplace through some of the analysis we've done, is that in many markets in Europe, there's less than about 50% penetration of a property management system. Channel managers are about 1/5 of the marketplace. So you start looking into this arena and realizing that hoteliers, many of them are not embracing all of the technology that's available. And if I'm not using an operating system, if I'm using a ledger, or I'm basically trying to enable my distribution through extranets, and I'm using multiple extranets and logins, what you're losing is time and your ability to compete with both the chains and those independents and advanced outliers that are embracing technology. With your website, how is it integrated with alternative information like we talked about for the merchandising? And are you diversifying your distribution enough? Working in certain markets versus others, again, that billboard effect, driving information where at one time they might book somewhere else, the next time they might come to your site. And you want to give them a level set around the type of technology and function they experience when they get to your website. So don't make the same mistake of others. Automate, enhance your content, think about the user first and the user experience, and engage with your technology, because it's going to enable to increase your occupancy, improve your yields from that occupancy, and drive that rate, maybe from multiple markets that you've not worked with before because you focus largely on 2 large channels and your own. You need to start expanding that net and driving your business more efficiently and effectively into that integrated automation where they recognize you and accept you for the booking and the value that you provide on your travels. So that's what I wanted to say, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, David. I think you ended on an excellent point, which is all around the value proposition in that equation. And judging by all of the comments and questions that came in, the audience has really appreciated your guidance. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Joey. And we're going to hop into our next 2 best and final presentations, and then we do have another dedicated segment for questions somewhere around the 1:35, 1:40 Eastern Standard Time mark. So we're going to jump in as soon as we get the last decks queued up.